For analysis on this, joining me now from Sydney is Rodger Shanahan, who is a research fellow at the WAR Institute for International Policy. Mr. Shanahan, great to have you with us. Now, aside from the obvious victory here of freeing 2,000 hostages and allowing people to return to their homes, talk us through how significant a blow this is to Daesh in terms of how Manbij links key areas of Syria like Raqqa and Aleppo.
Well, certainly there are two aspects to this. The first is stopping the momentum or maintaining the momentum of anti-Islamic State forces, and this is just another piece of evidence that Islamic State are losing control over areas that it's held for up to 2 years. The other aspect is, as you pointed out, Manbij is a key logistics and resupply node, both from its northern support areas, but also as the northern main supply route between Aleppo and Raqqa. The southern main supply route has been cut by government forces, Syrian government forces, some months ago, so it just places additional pressure, particularly on Raqqa, Islamic State's de facto capital in Syria.
And as you point out, Mr. Shanahan, this kind of momentum that's happening against Daesh coincides with the US stepping up its attacks. It's been assisting the coalition with airstrikes from above and arming other troops like the YPG on the ground. Do you think that is enough to eventually end the war in Syria, or is there a need to put US troops on the ground?
Well, I don't think there's any political will to place any kind of significant US manoeuvre combat forces in Syria from either President Obama, certainly not from President Obama, or from any of the potential presidential candidates. So I don't think that's a realistic...
I'm not asking about the likelihood of it happening. I'm asking what your thoughts are on whether it should happen.
No, I don't think so, because one of the issues about trying to solve the Syrian situation is ultimately it's a political solution to it. Having US forces in any great numbers in Syria just makes what is already a confusing political situation even more confusing. So one of the issues up to this point that's been quite difficult has been an air campaign in and of itself is not sufficient to turn the tide against Islamic State. Neither is the use of militias without air support. This combination of Syrian Democratic Forces supported by US air support is the kind of thing that builds up military momentum against Islamic State, and the intent is at some stage in the future a political solution can be developed.
The US airstrikes, though, have killed multiple civilians in Syria. Do you think that that is merely inevitable and justified with victories like what we've seen in Manbij?
I don't think there's been an air campaign against ground targets anywhere in the world at any stage in any part of our history that has been able to avoid civilian casualties. I think the US, and one of the reasons why the US has put special forces into northern Syria in support of the SDF is because it allows the kind of personnel that can minimise civilian casualties from airstrikes. And we also have to remember that the brutal reality is that Islamic State is deliberately fighting from within areas where civilians are. So in engaging Islamic State, even though you try and avoid civilian casualties at all times, as we've seen in every conflict throughout human history, there are always going to be, unfortunately, civilian casualties. All you can do is try to minimise them.
Rodger Shanahan from the WAR Institute, thank you so much for your insight and joining us.